This book is also known as, I Am Just Going to Die to Be True, as long as I have no morality, no one can kidnap me, stay away from him when thunder strikes, and, on the importance of prioritizing the occupation of moral lowlands, rebirth into a new life. Seeing people and things without quality, Qin Mu no longer intends to get used to them. You're almost 30, what are you arguing about with a child? Can't you be more open-minded during the Chinese New Year? You have so much money that you can't even use it up, why not donate it to impoverished mountainous areas? If you're a sister, you should give way to your younger brother. A single slap won't make a sound, and if he hits you, it must be your own fault. Aren't I doing this all for you? Do you think I'm willing? When encountering these phenomena of moral kidnapping and forced displacement, Qin Mu, who had originally turned a blind eye, decided to take over. No one is your father. Forgive me for being a police officer. What does it have to do with me? Keywords of the novel. The beginning is quite realistic, and the opposite side was scared by me and called the police. No pop-ups, start the game more realistic, the opposite side was scared by me and called the police. Download the complete set of TXT. At the beginning, it was quite realistic, but I scared the other side and called the police. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Fraud Telephone. Seeking Collection. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Fraud Telephone. Seeking Collection, Jincheng. Nursing Home. Several old men with white hair gathered together, holding a fan and enjoying the cool breeze in the yard. Lao Zhang, why don't we have 2 rounds after dinner later? At the level of your stinky chess basket, if I make you 2 cars, you won't be able to play against me. It's better to play against Xiao Qin than against you. Are you playing with Xiao Qin? You're too proud of yourself. In my opinion, Xiao Qin's level is almost on par with his profession. In the yard. Upon hearing the elderly in the nursing home mention him, Qin Mu couldn't help but lift his head. He is a volunteer at Jincheng Nursing Home. Actually, he is not from this world. 3 years ago, he crossed into this parallel world called Blue Star by chance. The history and culture of this world are almost identical to the Earth. Reviving his life, his mentality is very stable. After understanding the situation in this world, I chose the same job as in my previous life. Becoming a volunteer in a nursing home. That is to say, volunteers help take care of these lonely elderly people sent by their children. These elderly people are usually slow to move and have difficulty with their legs and feet. At home, the children are busy with work and have no time to take care of them. Just like Earth. Many young people in this world regard the elderly as a burden. I think they are stubborn, unable to communicate, unable to keep up with the times, and have a lot of trouble. They all chose to send the elderly to nursing homes. I completely forgot about these elderly people after they were born. They were taught to babble and learn language over and over again. Support them, teach them how to stumble and never tire of it. Of course they have no ill intentions. Just to make my life simpler and more comfortable. But for the elderly, almost everyone feels like they have become a burden on their children. Psychological harm is unavoidable. Therefore, on weekdays, Qin Mu not only takes care of the living and eating habits of these elderly people, but also goes out for walks and leisure activities. We also need to accompany them to relieve their worries, and ease their emotional knots. Over the past 3 years, he has a very good relationship with these elderly people. At the request of Lao Zhang and others, I also participated in activities for the elderly, such as playing chess. Of course. Every time he plays chess, he silently opens his phone. I clicked on the chess software. Adjusted the difficulty to a super master. Talked to them again. After 3 years, there have been no failures. He also left an unbeatable legend in the nursing home, comparable to a profession. Ding Lingling. while a group of elderly people were chatting. Old Zhang, lying on the rocking chair with a fan in his hand, noticed that his phone was ringing. The sound is very loud. Lao Zhang quickly sat up and took out his elderly flip phone from his pocket. As a result, it was found that it's a strange call. Can it be my son calling? My son hasn't contacted me for several days. 70.6-year-old Zhang helped with his reading glasses. Stretching out trembling fingers, he pressed the connect button on the left. And other elderly people also stopped talking and looked at Lao Zhang. Many people showed envious gazes. They usually live here, and some of their children haven't received a phone call for half a year. Hello. Hello, are you Zhang Qingyuan? The phone was quickly connected. A middle-aged man's voice came from the speaker of an elderly phone. His voice is very loud. Lao Zhang was stunned for a moment. His expression was somewhat disheartened. From his voice, he recognized that it was not his own son. Excuse me, are you Zhang Qingyuan? On the phone, the middle-aged man asked again. The tone and intensity have increased a bit. It seems like Lao Zhang has committed something. I'm Zhang Qingyuan. Lao Zhang swallowed his saliva and quickly responded. Hello, we are from the Municipal Criminal Investigation Team. We hereby solemnly inform you that your son has been detained by us on suspicion of a criminal offense and is currently under investigation. According to regulations, we have frozen all assets and bank accounts under your son's name. If there are no issues with the investigation, we will lift the freeze within 7 working days. The voice of the middle-aged man came from the speaker of the elderly machine. The tone is extremely serious. Bang dang. The words have just finished. Lao Zhang's face turned pale from fear, and he couldn't even hold his phone. Let it fall to the ground. With just a few words, he was completely flustered. It's over, it's over. Why is my son suspected of committing a criminal offense? I just said, why hasn't he called me these days? It turns out he was arrested by the police. What should I do about this? He was trembling all over. His face was full of anxiety and panic. As if the sky had collapsed. And the other elderly people on the side, due to the characteristics of elderly mobile phones, I could clearly hear the voice of the middle-aged person just now. I was also startled. Swallowing saliva, staring blankly at this scene. They have never encountered such a situation before. Zhang Qingyuan, right. You don't need to panic, this is just a normal routine investigation. On the ground, the voice of a middle-aged man continued to be heard from the elderly machine. Based on the evidence we have, your son should be innocent. After the investigation, all you need to do is follow the normal procedure and you will soon be able to see your son. Hear this. Lao Zhang quickly bent down and picked up his phone again. Speaking on the phone, he said, Officer, you ask, my son cannot commit a crime. I usually teach him to abide by the law. He is already 50 years old, so he can never commit a crime. Whether there is a crime or not, we need to investigate to find out. On the phone. The dignified voice of the middle-aged man continued to spread. Let me ask you first, is your name Zhang Qingyuan? I live at number 021 Lianhua Township and am currently staying at Jincheng Nursing Home. Your son's name is Zhang Tao. You have a grandson named Zhang Tianmin. Your grandson is currently at XX Elementary School. On the phone. The middle-aged man's every word was full of the smell of interrogation. And Lao Zhang, also known as Zhang Qingyuan, listening to the middle-aged man's inquiry, I became even more convinced of his identity. If it weren't for the police, how could you know so well about his family's situation? Now he just wants to cooperate honestly with the other party's investigation and help his son get rid of suspicion. Release and return home. Under the panic, he didn't even think in any other direction. Actually, it's not just him. The other elderly people in the nursing home did not doubt the identity of this middle-aged man. They all looked at Lao Zhang with worry and sympathy. Can't it be a fraudulent phone call? Qin Mu, who was standing beside him, couldn't help but frown as he watched the scene. Although the voice of middle-aged people is very serious and full of authority. But he did not report his department throughout the process. As soon as the phone was connected, he put pressure on Lao Zhang and broke his psychological defense line. It's like a legendary scam trick. Very good, the investigation has ended. We can confirm that your son Zhang Tianmin is not related to this criminal case. Please transfer 100,000 yuan to XXXXXX bank card within 24 hours, and we will unfreeze all assets under your son's name within 7 working days. A few minutes later. On the phone. The deep voice of the middle-aged man came out again. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. I choose truly. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. I choose truly, indeed, it was a fraudulent phone call. Hear this. Qin Mu can already be confirmed. This phone call is a scam call targeting the elderly. So the middle-aged person on the phone with just one call, various pressures were exerted on Zhang Qingyuan, breaking through his psychological defenses. He was at a loss and completely panicked. Plus full process guidance. Handle affairs according to rules and regulations, and formal procedures, make Lao Zhang have no time to think too much. Especially he directly revealed various family situations and information about Lao Zhang. Let the already simple old man firmly believe in his identity. Actually, in today's society, information leakage is rampant. Various platforms are reselling information. Obtaining the identity information of Lao Zhang's family, the difficulty is not significant. This is a premeditated and specifically investigated phone fraud. Qin Mu took a deep breath. I increasingly feel that the methods of these fraudsters are despicable. Young people are less likely to be deceived, but older people completely unclear about the social routines. The elderly device being used is also unable to install a national anti-fraud app. It is precisely the group they focus on. 100,000 yuan. Where am I going to raise so much money? My retirement fund has been saved for 10 years, and it's only 30,000 yuan. And on the other side. Lao Zhang's face turned ugly as he listened to the middle-aged man's words on the phone. If the freeze is not released as soon as possible, Zhang Tianmin will have to continue to accept criminal detention. On the phone, the cold voice of the middle-aged man came out. Just one sentence. It once again made Lao Zhang flustered. And the elderly people living in the same hospital on the side glancing at each other. He stood up with great loyalty. Lao Zhang, I still have 20,000 yuan left in my retirement pension. You can use it to save your son. It's important to save him. Yeah, I still have over 10,000 here, but I don't need them on a regular basis. My son just gave me a few hundred yuan last week, please take it first. Old people walked forward one by one. Start crowdfunding 100,000 yuan for Lao Zhang. Some take their passbooks, while others take cash directly. They usually live in nursing homes, without any conflicts of interest, and their relationship is very close. After seeing Lao Zhang encounter trouble, they are all very enthusiastic in extending a helping hand. Thank you, thank you, thank you all. Lao Zhang shook his hands and looked around, deeply moved. Soon. He pooled together 100,000 yuan. Did you gather all the money? We have gathered all the funds, then quickly transfer the money to the XXXXXXXXX bank account. Within 7 working days after receiving the money, we will unfreeze all assets under Zhang Tianmin's name. The voice of the middle-aged man continued to emanate from the elderly machine. Lao Zhang quickly nodded. Then, holding his passbook and cash, he turned to Qin Mu for help. In the nursing home, there is only Qin Mu, a young man. He wants to ask Qin Mu for help with the transfer. Qin Mu couldn't help but twitch a few times when he saw this. Shen transfer. This is almost done, and across from him is an iron wolf. He still transferred money to the other party. He took a deep breath. When I was planning to persuade Zhang Qingyuan to expose his identity as a fraud, a voice suddenly rang out in my mind. Ding! A fraud incident has been detected near the host, system binding is in progress. The system binding is complete, but the prerequisite tasks need to be completed in order to activate the system. Based on the current event, 3 prerequisite tasks are now released. 1. Resolutely expose the true identity of the fraudster and help Zhang Qingyuan and others recover their losses. 2. To falsely accuse the fraudster, report to the police in secret, and bring the fraudster to justice. 3. Compete with fraudulent phone calls, have the other party proactively report to the police, and fall into the trap. Each prerequisite task will unlock different rewards. A void panel appeared in front of him. Qin Mu was stunned for a moment. It's been 3 years. Unexpectedly, it was a fraudulent phone call that activated the system for him. But to activate the system we still need to complete a prerequisite task. Now in front of him, there are 3 options. The first option is the easiest, as long as you expose the identity of the scammer and recover the losses. But doing so it's really too cheap, this scammer. This is just what he saw around him. In the corner where he didn't see it, these scammers couldn't help but point out how many elderly people they had deceived had gone bankrupt. And the second option, we need to stabilize the fraudster and then report to the police. Through the police. Catch this scammer. But he is well aware that the fraudulent phone calls of these scammers have gone through more than 10 rounds of IP conversion and redirection. Even domestically. The police also find it extremely difficult to track the whereabouts of the other party. It is highly likely that it will not be resolved. This is also the reason for the rampant telephone fraud in China. Finally, only the third option remains. Ding! Please make a quick decision for the host. Suddenly, the voice in my mind once again urged me. I choose 3. Qin Mu did not hesitate and decisively chose 3. This choice, it seems unbelievable to let fraudsters take the initiative to fall into the trap. But he still wants to take it seriously once. He doesn't want it to be so cheap, these scammers. In this mediocre world, there are always a few more genuine people needed to exist. Ding! Congratulations to the host, they have made choice 3, activate the comparison system. Ding! Congratulations to the host for obtaining the advanced skill of voice camouflage. This skill can disguise itself as any sound you have ever heard, hiding from the heavens and seas. Please use it with caution, host. At the same time, Qin Mu noticed an invisible light flickering. His throat twitched slightly. I seem to it is already easy to simulate any sound. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Lao Li, did you betray me? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Lao Li, did you betray me? As long as it's the voice he has heard before. You can simulate disguise by changing your own voice. Comparable to top-notch sound transformers. Ding! Please host, complete the pre-task as soon as possible and unlock more system functions. Please note. The execution of this task will be settled based on the completion rate. The higher the completion rate, the richer the reward. The mechanical sound of the system followed. Qin Mu gradually regained his senses. Looking towards Zhang Qingyuan, whose face was full of anticipation and anxiety. Xiao Qin, can you help me transfer my account? Zhang Qingyuan saw him stunned and urged him again. The system panel screen just now, it seems that only he can see it. Alright, hurry up and transfer the money. After the money arrives, your son will be back within 7 working days. In elderly phones, the voice of middle-aged people can be heard. In the tone, there was a lack of composure and heaviness from before. There is an extra hint of urgency. Next up. Just hang up the phone. And Qin Mu then he took a deep breath and took the elderly phone from Zhang Qingyuan's hand. Underhanded use of voice camouflage skills. Forget it, stop pretending, let's have a showdown, sighed lightly, I didn't expect to be discovered by you even though I was hiding so deep. The words have just finished. In the small courtyard, the elderly, including Zhang Qingyuan, were all stunned. They looked at Qin Mu incredulously. Because the voice that Qin Mu just made is very similar to what Zhang Qingyuan said. No. To be precise, if they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they would have even thought that the person who just spoke was Lao Zhang. And in this light sigh, there is a complex emotion that cannot be explained clearly. What are you saying? In the elderly machine, the middle-aged person was also stunned for a moment. Then I quickly realized it. We are from the city's criminal investigation team, and the investigation has ended. Your son is indeed not related to this case, he said in a deep voice. 100,000 yuan of unfrozen funds will be transferred, and we will release the funds within 7 working days. Of course, if you don't want to see your son, you can also choose not to transfer money. Speaking. He pretended to hang up the phone. And in just a few short sentences, Zhang Qingyuan became anxious again and quickly wanted to speak. But was stopped by Qin Mu's gesture. My son. That useless thing, just grab it. The voice of aging once again came from Qin Mu's mouth. Just like Zhang Qingyuan. Just in the words, there is a hint of rebellion and indifference. This scene. It once again startled Zhang Qingyuan and others. Everyone stared at Qin Mu in astonishment, showing a bewildered expression. This time. They all saw very clearly, just now it was the sound made by Qin Mu. Did he get caught by you because of the 13 homicide cases he committed this year? After a brief pause. The next sentence spoken by Qin Mu once again frightened Zhang Qingyuan and others, causing their eyes to widen. I dare not breathe heavily. Isn't it? It seems that the case from a few years ago was discovered. I have long told him to be clean when doing things. I have been working for decades, but I still haven't made any progress. Qin Mu is holding an elderly phone. Using Zhang Qingyuan's phone, continue talking to yourself. The words spoken were astonishing and could scare people to death. Zhang Qingyuan and the elderly listen and listen. I couldn't help but swallow my saliva. Especially Zhang Qingyuan. He blinked his eyes, his face full of confusion. His son, when did you carry 13 homicide cases? You. What are you saying? In the elderly phone, I was stunned for a few seconds. The middle-aged man's voice came out again and he said sternly, I warn you. This is the task force, you are responsible for what you say. Our call is currently in recording mode throughout. Are you sure that Zhang Tianmin still carries 13 homicide cases? Qin Mu is holding his phone. Listening to the middle-aged man's somewhat panicked voice, the corners of his mouth gradually curled up. The other party is just an ordinary scammer. I can't calm down when I suddenly hear that the son of the scammer has committed 13 murders. Subsequently, he took advantage of the heat and continued to simulate Zhang Qingyuan's voice. Don't pretend to be confused, replied coldly, aren't you calling me on this phone just to test me out? If he doesn't commit a crime, why are you arresting him? His voice was very cold. It doesn't seem like an ordinary elderly person in a nursing home at all. Don't worry, he fell into your hands. I admit it. Just, how did you catch him? And how did you get my husband's phone number? Did you? Has an undercover agent been placed next to me? Speaking of which. In Qin Mu's old voice, there was a hint of madness and piercing killing intent. He paused for 3 seconds. I made a turning motion. Looking at an old man next to Zhang Qingyuan, he said in a cold voice, "Old Li, did you betray me?" By Zhang Qingyuan sighed. A white-haired and 82-year-old Li Weigua innocently blinked his eyes. Puzzled face just wanted to say something. I heard Qin Mu say, not I. Sound just like him. The tone was full of panic and confusion after being exposed. Not you. Next up. Qin Mu continued to speak, this time in the voice of Zhang Qingyuan. In the voice of vicissitudes, I suppressed my anger and killing intent. I remember you bought the plane ticket for Tianmin last month. His whereabouts are only known to you within the gang. My personal phone number is known to no more than 3 people, and you are one of them. What else do you have to say now? A series of rhetorical questions pushed the atmosphere to its climax. It's like a scene of questioning a traitor. This scene. Once again, I was stunned by Zhang Qingyuan, Li Weigua, and others. Big brother. Really? Really not me. Next second. Qin Mu easily switched and seamlessly connected, replacing the panicked voice of Li Weigua. In a state of panic, carrying indescribable fear. The voice still had a slight tremble. Bang! A piercing gunshot suddenly rang out. The frightened voice of Li Weigua suddenly came to an end. He fell heavily to the ground. Wipe the blood clean, drag the person down, put it in an oil bucket, fill it with cement, and sink it into the sea. The voice of the elderly, Zhang Qingyuan, once again emanated from Qin Mu's mouth. Proficient in the process. At first glance, it's not the first time doing such a thing. And the tone is cold. Full of indifference towards life. Yes. Finally. At the end, Qin Mu also simulated the voices of more than 10 other young people in unison. This is also the strength of this skill. Any sound he has heard can be easily simulated. The gunshots and the chorus of voices heard in movies and TV dramas are all lifelike simulations. There is no difference between it and really. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Scared Shen Fei. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Scared Shen Fei Yangqing. In a rental room. Dee. 7 self-made IP converters continuously emit jumping and switching sounds. And on the sofa. Then lay a middle-aged man with a mobile phone. His name is Shen Fei and he has been engaged in this industry for 7 years. The number of people who have successfully deceived has reached over 100. Having rich experience. At the same time. Every time I lie to someone in order to avoid being tracked by the police, he would use 7 self-made IP converters and constantly switch and redirect. Prevent being traced back. Just at this moment, he listened to the sound coming from the phone and suddenly stood up from the sofa. A cool breath reached the top of the head from the soles of the feet. Isn't it supposed to be? Just deceiving an ordinary lonely elderly person. He swallowed his saliva. Quickly picked up the information purchased at a high price and began to examine it. As an old hand in this field. He is professional and has prepared various materials in advance. Having done enough homework. On this document, all relevant information about Zhang Qingyuan is written. The date of birth, spouse status, child information, home address, interests, and hobbies are all clearly written. After comprehensive consideration, he decided to take action against Zhang Qingyuan. For this reason, he disguised himself as a member of the criminal investigation team and first intimidated Zhang Qingyuan, breaking through the psychological defense line. Everything was going smoothly originally. Zhang Qingyuan's voice trembled slightly, ready to transfer the money. But suddenly Zhang Qingyuan's tone changed, becoming cold and rebellious. Surprisingly, it was revealed that Zhang Tianmin had carried 13 homicide cases. Even on the phone it seems like he even killed someone. The sound of the gun just now, along with the voices of over a dozen young people, sounded incredibly real. I wouldn't have really tricked Black Boss, did I? In an instant. Shen Fei only felt a tingling sensation on his scalp. However, with years of career and experience, he still took a deep breath. I didn't easily believe the voice on the phone. But instead, facing the phone, pretending to be calm. "This is the Municipal Criminal Investigation Team," shouted in a deep and stern voice. "I don't care what you're doing, if you still want to see your son, immediately transfer 100,000 yuan to your XXXXXXXX bank account. I only give you 2 hours time." His voice regained its composure as a middle-aged police officer before. But my confidence is not as strong as before. Do you still want money? I can transfer my money to you, but I'm afraid you might have a chance to take it or lose it. Spend it. On the phone. The old voice of Zhang Qingyuan was once again heard. The voice is deep and low. Full of killing intent. With just one sentence, goosebumps appeared all over his body. You. Dare you threaten me? Shen Fei gritted his teeth and warned in a low voice, "This is the Municipal Criminal Investigation Team. If you dare to threaten and intimidate employees, you are already suspected of committing illegal crimes." The words have not yet finished. That old voice came out again from the phone. Illegal and criminal activities. In his voice, there was a hint of contempt and arrogance. "Don't say I threatened and intimidated you, just take what I just said. I shot Lao Li, what can you do with me? Do you have any evidence? You don't have any personal or physical evidence. A recording doesn't explain anything. I'm not that useless person you caught. Even if you kill someone, you can't catch me. Even if you catch me, I won't constitute a crime." The old and rebellious voice rang out again in the rented house. Extremely arrogant. Extremely arrogant. After listening, Shen Fei couldn't help but shiver. I almost couldn't catch my phone. At this moment, he can already be certain that his intelligence has gone wrong, and the other party is definitely not an ordinary old man. An ordinary old man cannot be so insane. When facing a task force, I dare not be so arrogant. This is simply an extra-legal maniac. Combining everything I heard from my phone just now, he already had some faith that the other party might be some black boss. But this black boss seemingly hiding in a nursing home for some special reason, under the pseudonym Zhang Qingyuan. Disguising oneself as an ordinary elderly person. Think about it this way. The contrast before and after Zhang Qingyuan was instantly explained reasonably. At the beginning, Zhang Qingyuan deliberately pretended to be worried and afraid, and decided not to pretend afterwards. Abandoned Zhang Tianmin. In front of the phone, he killed a person named Lao Li. The image of an old-looking, godfather-like hero, it gradually came to his mind. Did I really scam the black boss? Thinking of this, Shen Fei's face became extremely ugly. This son of Zhang Qingyuan has already carried 13 lives this year. Can be in the other person's mouth. This is just waste. If Zhang Qingyuan is really the boss of the gang, then things may be troublesome. At this moment, on the phone, a stranger's voice came again. "Boss, we have already asked the mobile people to help track the IP address of the phone. However, this person is very cunning and can only roughly infer the city he is located in, not the exact residence." Upon hearing this, Shen Fei couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. A bad feeling emerged in my heart. And the next second, the indifferent voice of Zhang Qingyuan rang out again. "Since we have found a specific city, it will be easy to handle." The voice of aging, without any emotion. "Send 30 people over. I don't care if he belongs to the task force, but in 24 hours, he must evaporate from the mortal world." Yes. Hear this. Shen Fei suddenly felt a surge of cold air rushing up to the heavenly Lingai. His face became increasingly ugly. Without considering anything else, I quickly hung up the call. Doodle doodle. Listening to the busy sound on his phone, he collapsed on the sofa. His expression was a bit dazed. This person can't really be the black boss, right? He murmured, feeling more and more that something was wrong. The other party was able to stay in the nursing home, but if they didn't agree, they ended up being Lao Li. Even the IP address can be traced, with a clear eye. He also said he would send 30 people to Yangqing to pursue him. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Task completion 40%. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Task completion 40% Everything. It made him doubt again. The other party really looks too much like the black boss. His tone is cruel, his blood is cold and ruthless. At this moment, I have long forgotten my original purpose of deceiving money. My mind is filled with scenes from the phone just now. It's hard to distinguish between true and false. Half an hour later. He forced himself to calm down and took a deep breath. Suddenly shook his head. No, it's not right. This is just a sound happening on the phone, not necessarily true. I can't scare myself. Although the voice on the phone is incredibly authentic. But it wasn't what he saw with his own eyes, perhaps the other party was just trying to deceive him. In their profession, one must have strong psychological resilience and the ability to withstand pressure. He can't just be deceived. My IP address has undergone 7 changes, jumping almost every second, and the entire conversation has only been 30 minutes. Even the police cannot trace my whereabouts. Shen murmured. The ugly expression finally calmed down and I sat back up straight. Steady breathing. Picked up another piece of information. Prepared to take action against another elderly person. However, after this phone call, he no longer had the calmness and composure he had when he cheated before. The tone is also somewhat superficial. Hello, we are from the Municipal Criminal Investigation Team. We hereby solemnly inform you that your son has been detained by us on suspicion of a criminal offense and is currently under investigation. At the same time. Jincheng. Within the nursing home. Doodle doodle. Zhang Qingyuan listened to the busy sounds constantly coming from the elderly machine. Finally, I realized it. His face was full of panic and unease. It's over, why did the police hang up on me? Can my son still come back? Xiaoqin, you. Why did you just impersonate my voice so much and still? Zhang Qingyuan glared at Qin Mu with complaint, trembling with anger and unable to speak fluently. By his side. Li Weiguo looking at Qin Mu with some complaints. Just now, Qin Mu simulated his voice and even killed him on the phone. And he also created a very rich image of Zhang Qingyuan, an extra-legal maniac, for the police. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they would never have believed that such a real scene was actually portrayed by Qin Mu with one mouth. Lao Zhang, don't worry. Faced with everyone's complaints. Qin Mu smiled slightly and patted Zhang Qingyuan's shoulder. I have been in a nursing home for 3 years. He is very familiar with everyone, and his language is very casual. Who said this phone number belongs to the police? Zhang Qingyuan was taken aback. Angry, he couldn't help but lift his head and look at Qin Mu. I heard Qin Mu continue to speak, actually, this is a fraudulent phone call. The words fell. Zhang Qingyuan couldn't help but widen his eyes, showing an incredulous expression. Not just him. Even Li Weiguo and other elderly people in the nursing home showed a puzzled expression. Obviously. No one doubts the authenticity of this phone call. Are you saying? Is this a scammer calling? A fake police officer? I was stunned for a few seconds. Zhang Qingyuan swallowed his saliva and couldn't help but ask, but how did he know my name, where do I live, and information about my family? This point. He felt that no one could find it except the police. Yeah, this person said he's from the task force. The tone is so serious and correct, just like the one on the news. How can it be a fake? Are you sure you're not mistaken? Li Weigua and several other elderly people also gathered together and expressed their opinions. Qin Mu saw the situation. I couldn't help but shake my head and let out a bitter smile. The thoughts of these elderly people still stuck in the past, thinking that no one dared to impersonate the police, and their vigilance towards such phone calls was too low. Subsequently, he patiently explained to Zhang Qingyuan, Li Weigua, and others the problem of information leakage causing disasters in modern society. Just after listening, Zhang Qingyuan and others nodded vaguely. In his eyes, he didn't believe him very much. Under helplessness, Qin Mu shrugged and said, "Why don't you give your son a try on the phone?" Zhang Qingyuan only then realized. I picked up the elderly phone and dialed the phone that I had been familiar with for most of my life. After more than 10 seconds, the phone was quickly answered. "Hello, Dad. What's up? Didn't I call a few days ago? I'm currently in a meeting." On the other end of the phone, there came a rather impatient voice. After Zhang Qingyuan heard this sound, the originally uneasy heart was completely relieved. "No, it's okay. I just wanted to give you a call." I briefly said a few words. The other end of the phone quickly hung up. But Zhang Qingyuan couldn't close his mouth with joy, and his face was once again filled with a smile. "Are you really a scammer?" So far, Li Weigua and others completely believed Qin Mu's words. Just now, the sound from the elderly machine was very loud. They listened clearly throughout the entire process. The person on the phone also claimed that Lao Zhang's son had been arrested and suspected of committing a criminal offense. Now it seems that everything is fake. In fact, when encountering such a phone call, don't panic, be sure to confirm the authenticity of what the other person says as soon as possible. Qin Mu looked at these elderly people. Patiently said, the other party also uses the mentality of being impatient and chaotic to deceive people in just a few hours. Many times. As long as you react, you will realize that this is a scam. Just clever fraudsters are skilled at creating psychological pressure and causing their targets to lose their initiative. Blindly following instructions. And the more vulnerable elderly have gradually become their priority targets. Ding. Congratulations to the host for interrupting the fraudster's plan, causing panic and chaos. The completion rate of the prerequisite task is 40%. Ding. Congratulations to the host. You can receive a reward of 40 lucky points for your current completion level. Kind reminder. The task target is still being scammed. Please keep working hard and complete the pre-task as soon as possible. At the same time, a voice rang out in Qin Mu's mind. The empty panel text appeared before his eyes. Qin Mu couldn't help but frown. Choose the task of 3 by yourself. Surprisingly, it only completed 40%. Just now, my own manipulation and counterattack only made the other party panic. More importantly, the other party didn't give up and continued to deceive others. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. The Magic Use of Lucky Values. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. The Magic Use of Lucky Values. It can be imagined. With this scammer's method, there will definitely be more elderly people being deceived. He must find a way to send the other person in. Since he has encountered this matter, he cannot easily let it go. This lucky value. Subsequently, he began to look towards the reward of completing 40% of the task, which was the lucky value. This is the reward for each task published by the system. Rewards are random and of various types. And the lucky value, it is a kind of reward that can make people more lucky on the basis of their original luck. For example, the probability of winning the lottery is 1 in a billion, but with the addition of lucky values, the probability may become 1 in 1,000. The more lucky you are, the better your luck will be. Ha! Can this lucky value be deducted in reverse? Suddenly, Qin Mu discovered that the system rewards 40 lucky points, which can be increased or decreased. It can make people lucky or unfortunate. In short, it means becoming unlucky. On the basis of the original constant luck, after deducting 40 points this person will have all sorts of difficulties and bad luck. Since that's the case, Qin Mu's eyes lit up and he instantly thought of a way to punish this fraudster. It doesn't matter whether one is lucky or not. As a person who loves more seriously, he wants this scammer to be punished accordingly. System, I want to use these 40 lucky points, reverse deduction, target. That scammer just now. He took a deep breath and directly issued instructions to the system. Please set the time period for the lucky value to take effect for the host. The cold sound of the system quickly responded. Qin Mu was taken aback for a moment. Is there still a time slot? After a systematic introduction, he finally understood. The effective time of the lucky value can be set arbitrarily. The same lucky value of 40 points, set the time to permanent, will have a much weaker effect. If set to 1 day, the effect will continue to compress, concentrating all lucky things on this day. Similarly, unfortunately, things will also focus on this day. Then compress him within 24 hours. Qin Mu snorted coldly and confirmed the effective period. Soon. In the panel, 40 lucky points disappear out of thin air after being used. Yangcheng. In a rental house. Very good, the investigation has ended. We can confirm that your daughter is not related to this criminal case. Please transfer 300,000 yuan to XXXXXX bank card within 24 hours, and we will unfreeze all assets under your son's name within 7 working days. Shen held his phone and showed a hint of joy. After being frightened by the phone call from Zhang Qingyuan just now, it's open. The one who cheated this time was an old woman in her 70s. After being frightened by him in a few words, the other party completely panicked and let him handle it. In addition, he also specifically investigated the other party's family situation and proposed an amount of 300,000 that the other party could fully afford. Okay, I'll go transfer the money now. Which bank account is it? On the other side of the phone, there came an elderly voice. The tone carries a hint of anxiety. The bank account number is. Shen took a deep breath and spoke in a calm middle-aged voice. Just as I was about to read out my bank account, I found my phone suddenly crashed. The call was also cut off as a result. No matter how he restarts, the phone still remains motionless. I'm yuan hashtag dot. In an instant, Shen cursed countless profanities. He has been working hard for so long, collecting information, simulating language, researching psychology books. It's all about earning money based on one's abilities, and surprisingly, I fell off the chain at this critical moment. This old lady is lucky. When I buy a phone, I'll aim for the next one. Shen let out a gloomy breath. As a professional, he is very clear that the golden time for cheating is only a few hours. Wait for the other party to react. It is impossible for oneself to succeed. I've been on the phone for so long, I'm so thirsty. Throwing the phone that crashed aside, Shen picked up the water on the table. I plan to drink it all in one gulp. Cough cough. I just drank it, but suddenly I choked on it. The water poured back into the nasal cavity, extremely irritating. For a while, he choked with tears streaming down his face. Why am I so unlucky today? When he recovered, Shen frowned and roast. I plan to go out and buy a new phone later. But just as I walked out of the residential building, I was almost hit by a flower pot that fell from the sky. Only 1 meter away from him. When crossing the road, an SUV that ran a red light was speeding all the way, honking its horn and almost collided with him. Walking on the road, I even stepped on a banana peel. Throwing oneself with a bruised nose and swollen face. 3 hours later. When he finished buying his phone and returned to the rental house, he almost lost half of his life. What's going on? How do you feel today? Being targeted. Lying on the sofa, Shen began to recall what had happened within the past few hours. This can no longer be described as unlucky. Several times, if it weren't for his quick reaction, he almost got sent away. And all of this, it seems that it all happened after he finished dialing Zhang Qingyuan. I don't know. Right. It should just be a coincidence. He swallowed his saliva and his expression became somewhat nervous. Before hanging up the phone, Zhang Qingyuan said he wanted to send 30 people over. This matter has always been on his mind. As long as I don't leave the room, there should be no problem. After careful consideration, he decided to stay in this room and spend a few days peacefully. The outside world, it's really too dangerous. Midnight. At midnight, the drowsy Shen was awakened by a fierce knocking on the door. No. To be precise, it was the sound of knocking on the door. Open the door. Open the door. I know you're inside. I can avoid the first day of junior high school, but I can't avoid the 15th. Today, brothers and gentlemen came all the way over. Do you have to make sure we can make the assignment? The voices of several rugged men came in. Shen drowsiness suddenly disappeared. The whole person was shocked and their face changed greatly. No, did that black boss really come to kill me? In an instant. He remembered the tragic death of old Li. Put it in a bucket, pour cement, and throw it to the bottom of the sea. Invisible fear enveloped his entire body. Through the cat's eye, he clearly saw that at least 10 people were gathered outside the door. Surround the entrance and exit channels with no way out. Everyone has tiger arm tattoos, which are ferocious. This scene completely scared him out of his wits. Under urgent circumstances, he rushed straight to the balcony and jumped down from the 3rd floor. Click and wipe. The sound of a broken calf is clear and audible. The intense pain swept through his heart, but he gritted his teeth tightly and dared not speak. Leaving this community as if fleeing. And on the other side, at the entrance of the rental house where he lives, a group of burly men knocked on the door for a long time, only to find that no one answered. Finally, someone noticed something was wrong. Big brother, it seems like we knocked on the wrong door. It's because this one behind us owes money. Everyone reacted. Quickly turning around, they gathered at the door of the house behind them. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Scammers scared to report to the police. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Scammers scared to report to the police. Yangcheng. Outside this dilapidated community, Shen endured the excruciating pain of a broken bone and limped away frantically. I used all my strength and speed in my life. These people are definitely here to trouble me. This Zhang Qingyuan is really the black boss. At this moment, a huge wave had already stirred up in his heart. Like flipping the river and the sea. My luck during this period is really unlucky. The scam reached the black boss, not to mention this black boss, he also holds grudges very seriously. I really sent dozens of people to Yangcheng, wanting to kill him. If it weren't for the house he rented living on the 3rd floor, he would probably have been caught by those big men with tiger backs and bear backs by now. It's over, it's really over now. I am so hidden that I can be detected by them. Their means and energy are definitely not something ordinary that I can fight against. What should I do now? After a difficult 1-kilometer run, Shen leaned against a garbage dump, panting heavily. There was a heart-wrenching pain coming from the fractured calf. Cold sweat and hot sweat intertwined and flowed on the forehead. My face was filled with despair. No. I can't just sit idly by like this. Now it's certain that the other party is the boss of the gang, why don't I report it to him first? A few minutes later. Scared out of his wits, he struggled to stand up against the wall. Make a decisive move towards a certain police station in Yangqing. In this world, a person's power is ultimately limited. When encountering such a situation, the best way is to seek help from the police. At 4 o'clock in the morning. Yangqing, a certain police station. Zhou Qin, a veteran police officer who has been in the industry for 30 years, is holding a pen with his apprentice Wang Qian, bowing his head in routine recording. Are you saying? Zhou Qin slowly lifted his head and looked at the reporter in front of him, who was miserable and had messy hair. After a pause. Then he asked, did you escape all the way to the police station after being chased by some black boss? This reporter, that's Shen Fei, nodding repeatedly. Excited tears and a runny nose. God knows how many life and death crises did he encounter on his way to the police station. Fortunately, he was vigilant all the way and managed to arrive here without any danger. Comrade, you don't know, they are too crazy. He took a deep breath. Like pouring beans out of a bamboo tube, speak out what happened on your day. Zhou Qin, who was listening across from me, was momentarily stunned. 10 minutes later. Zhou Qin's face was covered in black lines. Seeing Shen Fei still talking incessantly, he quickly stopped him and said, ahem, what we're doing is taking notes. You just need to talk about things related to the case. As for you almost choking to death while drinking water at home, getting hit by a flower pot when going out, being hit by a car, and stepping on watermelon peel, it goes without saying. Shen Fei suddenly came to an end. Take a deep breath. He said very seriously, comrade, I want to report to the police. I found a black boss who wants to kill me. The words have just finished. Zhou Qin and Wang Qian exchanged a glance, their expressions becoming solemn. In broad daylight, this blatant case, it's been a long time since it happened. Please speak carefully. This black boss is located in Jincheng and is currently in a nursing home. His name is Zhang Qingyuan, and he looks like an ordinary elderly person. Shen Fei took a sip of water. He said everything he knew. But in reality, he is actually a generation of heroes, lawbreakers, and has done countless cases. His son, Zhang Tianmin, committed 13 lives in just 1 year last year. Just yesterday, he personally killed a person named Lao Li. They said they were going to put him in a bucket, fill him with cement, and sink him into the sea. Zhou Qin listened attentively. His expression became increasingly solemn. If what Shen Fei said is true, this will be an unprecedented case. Based on the principle of prudence. After completing the transcript with his disciple Wang Qian, he temporarily arranged for Shen Fei to stay at the guest house. Master, are you saying? Is what he said true or false? Wang Qian, who had just graduated, blinked as he looked at the notes he had made. His expression was somewhat excited. Zhou Qin frowned and did not easily draw a conclusion. Since he reported the case, file it first. I see that his mental state seems to be a bit off. Let's first check the information and investigate Zhang Qingyuan and Zhang Tianmin. Also, check Shen Fei's information and investigate his background. As a veteran police officer, he has extensive experience and does not easily believe what Shen Fei said. 2 hours later. On the other side of Yangqing, I have sent over an electronic file of Zhang Qingyuan. Can Zhou Qin finish reading? My eyebrows furrowed even deeper. A 78-year-old man. In the file, Zhang Qingyuan has no strength to bind chickens and has good interpersonal relationships. I have never had any criminal record. In social credit ratings, it also belongs to the category of good citizens. The kind that is harmless to humans and animals. Master, is this Zhang Qingyuan hiding too well? In fact, he is a person of great treachery and evil. Wang Qian couldn't help but say. Zhou Qin shook his head, his intuition told him it couldn't be so simple. I see that Shen Fei's mental state is not right. Get ready and have a drug test. By the way, when can Shen Fei's information be retrieved? Through a brief inquiry. He seriously suspects Shen Fei suffered from delusional persecution, which is why he fabricated a false existence. But the information provided by Shen Fei about Zhang Qingyuan is also very accurate. Even Zhang Tianmin, the son of Zhang Qingyuan, is well aware of the situation. This also made him suspicious. There's something wrong with this case. Zhou Qin took a deep breath and patiently waited. The next day, at 8 o'clock in the morning. After a busy night, Zhou Qin finally obtained the relevant information about Shen Fei, and from the information show that Shen Fei has had multiple cases of fraud. The drug test results showed that everything was normal for Shen Fei. There are no signs of taking medication. So, Zhou Qin found Shen Fei again and asked again. Comrades, you must protect me. Dozens of people outside are going to kill me. As soon as they met, Shen Fei shouted in fear again. Zhou Qin frowned and said in a deep voice, Shen Fei, I advise you to be honest. You should know the consequences of reporting false alarms. Shen Fei was taken aback. But he still said excitedly, what I said is true. Zhang Qingyuan is really on the phone. Speaking of which. His face changed drastically and he suddenly covered his mouth. I didn't dare to say it anymore. Just a few more words, I'm afraid I'll have to send myself in. But Zhou Qin keenly noticed this and questioned again, phone. What phone? According to the data file, Shen Fei and Zhang Qingyuan don't even know each other. It's impossible to have a phone call from the other party. But next. No matter how he asked, Shen Fei still hesitated and refused to say a word more. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Extraordinary Madman Zhang Qingyuan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Extraordinary Madman Zhang Qingyuan. There is a deep taboo about the phone call. Regarding this, Zhou Qin keenly sensed that there was a problem. Make decisive use of permissions. Found the relevant department and called all of Shen Fei's recent calls. As a result, it was found that all of Shen Fei's calls are displayed as normal. Under helplessness, Zhou Qin chose to reverse investigate and retrieved all calls from Zhang Qingyuan. Sure enough, discovered clues from it. A phone call with constantly changing IP addresses was dialed yesterday. Subsequently, he read all the audio of the phone call and conducted an investigation with his disciple Wang Qian. Hello, we are from the Municipal Criminal Investigation Team. We hereby solemnly inform you that your son has been detained by us on suspicion of a criminal offense and is currently under investigation. At the beginning of the conversation, Shen Fei's voice was heard. Wang Qian heard the words. I took a breath of air in an instant, showing an expression of disbelief. Master, is Shen Fei actually a fraud? They have thoroughly investigated Shen Fei's information, and he is just an ordinary person. On the phone but impersonating a member of the project team. Zhou Qin frowned, and it was indeed as he had anticipated. Shen Fei had a case record before. Not long after leaving. I didn't expect as soon as he came out, he started his old business again, and the target of the scam was still elderly people in their 70s and 80s. Next up. From this conversation, the two of them heard about Shen Fei's entire set of fraudulent methods. Defeat the opponent's psychological defense line. Step-by-step pressure. Provide appropriate guidance. Finally, a request was made for a thawing fee of 100,000 yuan. Master, this scammer is really despicable. He actually specializes in deceiving the elderly for money. When Wang Qian heard that Zhang Qingyuan was ready to raise money, his teeth itched with hatred. Zhou Qin's face also darkened. Just he still had a question in his heart: how could Shen Fei, who was originally deceiving, suddenly be frightened like this? Surprisingly, he was so scared that he threw himself into the trap. Forget it, stop pretending, let's have a showdown. I didn't expect to be discovered by you even though I was hiding so deep. You. What are you saying? We are from the Municipal Criminal Investigation Team, and the investigation has been completed. Your son is indeed not related to this case. My son. That useless thing, just grab it. Did he get caught by you because of the 13 homicide cases he committed this year? Hear this. Zhou Qin and Wang Qian's faces slightly changed. I instantly understood where Shen Fei's panic came from. The words spoken by Zhang Qingyuan were cold and indifferent, resembling the tone of a superior. And next the conversation between the two once again made Zhou Qin and Wang Qian feel like formidable enemies. I dare not relax at all. Bang! A gunshot, accompanied by the sound of blood splattering everywhere. The voice of Lao Li came to a sudden halt. Then came Zhang Qingyuan's indifferent words of filling barrels with cement and sinking into the sea. Finally, Zhang Qingyuan counter-threatened Shen Fei and scared him to hang up the phone. So far, the call has ended. Master, how can we deal with this matter? Wang Qian swallowed his saliva, clearly frightened by Zhang Qingyuan. Zhou Qin took a deep breath. In a deep voice, he said, "What a panic. Evil triumphs over righteousness. It seems we're going to Jincheng. The evidence of Shen Fei's fraudulent behavior is conclusive. But this phone call he created an image of Zhang Qingyuan, an extraterrestrial maniac and a generation of heroes. He has to take it seriously and continue to investigate." Jincheng. Nursing home. After experiencing a wave of fraud, the nursing home has once again returned to tranquility. A harmonious faction. Xiao Qin, how did you develop this chess skill? Why did you win so easily while playing on your phone? Zhang Qingyuan looked at a lone general on his chessboard. I feel extremely depressed as I have practiced chess for decades and become proficient in dogs. Qin Mu chuckled. Not explain too much. At this moment, the sound of the system quietly rang out. Ding! Congratulations to the host. The target has fallen into the trap and received the appropriate punishment. The completion rate of the prerequisite tasks is 100%. Ding! Congratulations to the host for receiving a random reward for physical enhancement. Possessing a physique comparable to that of a Special Forces soldier. Do you want to use it now? Listen to this sound. Qin Mu's expression couldn't help but brighten. This guy has finally entered. It's not in vain that he paid 40 lucky points as a price. Use. He nodded. The light of the system quietly bloomed, as if enlightened. Gradually transforming his body in silence. He only felt that his strength was gradually increasing. Various reactions, perception, speed, etc. have all been significantly improved. This random reward is good, at least you don't have to worry about not being able to defeat people in the future. Having received this tangible reward, Qin Mu is still quite satisfied. In modern society, after strengthening his physique, he can hang and beat most ordinary people. Although I won't take the initiative to bully others. But sometimes it is inevitable to use force to solve problems. Ding-ling-ling. Suddenly, Zhang Qingyuan, who was playing chess and planning to play another game, started ringing on his phone. Zhang Qingyuan was taken aback. Connected to the phone. As a result, on the other end of the phone as soon as it was connected, a serious voice came. Hello, is this Mr. Zhang Qingyuan? Zhang Qingyuan frowned, as if he had seen the scene before. After a pause, he still replied, I am. On the other end of the phone, he said again, "It's like this. This is Jincheng police station, and there is a case that may be related to you. Could you please come to the police station?" Zhang Qingyuan glanced at Qin Mu. Dun immediately remembered the scammer's phone call from yesterday and snorted coldly, "You want to say my son was arrested again, right? Although I almost fell for it yesterday, it doesn't mean I'm a fool. You guys formed a group to trick me into coming, right? Yesterday we just joined a criminal investigation team, and today we have a police station again. You can't even catch a single one while pulling wool. I'm telling you, you can't cheat me out of a penny. Say it." He hung up the phone very decisively. Then he looked at Qin Mu and proudly said, "How's it going? Am I smart this time? In the future, scammers won't be able to deceive me again." Qin Mu's mouth twitched. "The other person hasn't said anything yet, how can you be sure they're a scammer?" "What if it's true?" said the person with a faint voice. Zhang Qingyuan opened his mouth. Suddenly stunned for a moment. "I seem to be hanging up a bit fast." At the same time. Jincheng, a certain police station. Doodle doodle. Listen to the busy tone on the phone. Zhou Qin and several comrades from the local police station looked at each other. They just said a sentence. Zhang Qingyuan said a lot with a clattering sound, and then hung up the phone directly. They didn't even react. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Lao Zhang, what did you do? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Lao Zhang, what did you do, does he think? We are scammers. Zhou Qin and his disciple Wang Qian exchanged a glance, feeling somewhat amused. These days, on the contrary, scammers are rampant, while the real police are mistaken for scammers. After listening to the call records, the two of them. They rushed to Jincheng in a hurry, wanting to investigate the truth of the matter. "Master, what should we do now?" Wang Qian also encountered this situation for the first time and couldn't help but look at Zhou Qin. Zhou Qin shook his head helplessly. Unable to call the other party over, they can only personally visit and understand the situation. Actually, after arriving in Jincheng, they collected information from multiple sources and found that Zhang Qingyuan he is actually an ordinary old man. I have never done anything out of line. As for the recording on the phone can only serve as a reference. In theory, it cannot be relied upon to convict. After all, in reality, there are still a large number of people who like to talk high. We can only make one trip. Zhou Qin gave a bitter smile and shook his head helplessly. Once bitten by a snake, 10 years afraid of a well rope. The other party probably won't believe this kind of phone call no matter what they say. Subsequently, he took his disciple Wang Qian and several local staff members to the nursing home on his own initiative. 2 hours later. Nursing home. General. Zhang Qingyuan was still playing chess with Qin Mu and exclaimed proudly. He lost all afternoon. Finally make him proud and win. If this were placed in the chess world of nursing homes, he could boast for a lifetime. Hee, Xiao Qin, your level in this game is not good. If you don't play with your phone, why can't you beat me? Zhang Qingyuan rearranged the chess pieces while looking at Qin Mu on the opposite side. Qin Mu. This afternoon. He almost won all of Zhang Qingyuan's underwear with the help of a supermaster. Finally. I was really sorry, so I had to put down my phone. Choose to compete with real strength. He thought he had been a master chess player for 3 years, so he could have had some ups and downs with Zhang Qingyuan. But I didn't expect if you don't cheat, you really can't beat Zhang Qingyuan. Zhang Qingyuan decisively killed him with 3 strokes and 5 divisions. Come on, one more move, this time you're red first. Zhang Qingyuan seems to have developed a chess addiction. It started urging again. Lao Zhang, you still have the heart to play chess here. The people from the police station have all come to your door. What have you done? At this moment, Li Weiguo hurriedly ran in from outside. Zhang Qingyuan was taken aback. I'm not sure why. Just now, a few comrades from the police station found our nursing home, named Dao, and asked for Zhang Qingyuan. Li Weiguo went on to elaborate again. Zhang Qingyuan listened even more bewildered. People from the police station, what are you looking for him for? He was not cheated of money, nor was he cheated of family money. But without any wrongdoing, he doesn't have anything to fear. Immediately put down the chess pieces and followed Li Weiguo over. I'll go too. Qin Mu's expression lit up and he roughly guessed something. I also followed over. After all, this matter it's because of him. Soon, Zhang Qingyuan met Zhou Qin, the scammer. Caught. After a simple conversation, Zhang Qingyuan was stunned for a moment, showing a joyful expression. These scammers who kill thousands of dollars, they should, said Chang Kuai. Zhou Qin gave a bitter smile. Continuing, he said, Old man, I came to see you this time mainly to inquire about yesterday's phone call. Zhang Qingyuan blinked. Then he waved his hand and said, Oh, that phone call. Actually, I almost got scammed, but fortunately, with Shao Qin reminding me nearby, I was able to avoid being deceived. Speaking. Pointed to Qin Mu. Zhou Qin's expression moved slightly and he looked at Qin Mu beside him. Praise said, I am truly a young person with a high level of alertness. I was fortunate not to be deceived this time. Qin Mu smiled. And Zhou Qin turned around and looked at Zhang Qingyuan again. Returning to the main topic of this trip. It's like that, yesterday's phone call, didn't you say later? Your son also carried 13 homicide cases and killed someone on the spot, old man, do you remember? Hear this. Zhang Qingyuan opened his mouth and couldn't help but swallow saliva. As he reacted, he quickly looked at Qin Mu again. Denying, comrade, this matter has nothing to do with me. At that time, Shao Qin was holding my phone and communicating with the scammer. Zhou Qin frowned and said somewhat displeased, Old man, you're not cooperating. I've heard your voice throughout the phone recording. Zhang Qingyuan widened his eyes. It seemed like 100 words were lost at once. Indeed. When the scammer called yesterday it was his voice throughout, and Qin Mu didn't say a word. Fortunately, at this time, Qin Mu stood up and explained the whole story. Half an hour later, Zhou Qin, Wang Qian, and others finally digested this truth. Are you saying you impersonated Zhang Qingyuan's voice and negotiated with the fraudster? Are you the one who made all those sounds on the phone? This person is actually the deceased old Li. Zhou Qin pointed to Li Weiguo and looked at Qin Mu with some disbelief. And Qin Mu, to prove himself, he repeated a sentence in his voice on the spot. The voice is the same, no different. End of this chapter. How long can chapter 10 be judged? You are listening at novelfull.audio. How long can chapter 10 be judged? If not seen with one's own eyes, heard with one's own ears. He can't believe that the person who just spoke actually, it's Qin Mu. This voice is exactly the same as him. He is certain that even his relatives cannot distinguish the differences. And here, he has also investigated the details of the matter. Firstly, Zhang Qingyuan received a fraudulent phone call and almost fell for it. Fortunately, at a critical moment, Qin Mu stood up and simulated Zhang Qingyuan's voice. On the other hand, counter-intimidate the fraudster, Shen. I acted and directed a scene myself. He portrayed Zhang Qingyuan as an extra-legal maniac, a generation of fierce heroes. Finally, under various coincidences, Shen was probably scared out of his wits. I mistakenly thought that Zhang Qingyuan had really sent someone to pursue him. Surprisingly, he ran to the police station and fell into his own trap. The process of this incident is too complicated and bizarre. Zhou Qin gave a bitter smile, his expression quite complicated. He has been handling cases for 30 years. I have never encountered such a bizarre case before. And Qin Mu, he is also the most outrageous among all the young people he has met. Others, upon discovering that it was a scammer's phone call, would at most expose the other party. But Qin Mu directly directed and acted in a play, which scared the other party out of psychological problems. The ancient said that there were people in the capital who were good at oral skills and could make sounds of plants, insects, fish, and all things in the world. I used to think it was fake, but today I have finally opened my eyes. Zhou Qin looked at Qin Mu and couldn't help but sigh. Qin Mu. By the way, the fraudster Shen has been arrested this time, and we have also figured out the process. We will send a notice to all sectors of society to make this case public later. Subsequently, Zhou Qin said seriously, it may involve some of your personal privacy and require your authorization and permission. After all, this incident overall, it has little to do with them. The greatest hero is still Qin Mu. Qin Mu was slightly taken aback. Then he nodded and said, okay, I just have one question now. How long will this scammer be sentenced to prison after he's caught? How long can he be sentenced? Revive a lifetime. He has a deep hatred toward such scammers. He enjoys leisure and dislikes work, does not engage in legitimate work, and specifically targets the trust and psychological weaknesses of others, achieving success without effort. Countless people have been ruined and heavily indebted. Some people say that if they don't have money, they are not afraid of being deceived. But the real scammer, they will also disguise themselves as members of financial institutions and induce victims to seek loans from formal institutions. Then scam all these loan payments away. By the time the victim discovers, it's already too late. I can only bear it alone and silently repay the bank loan. Similar events have occurred to his friends no less than 3 times. The anti-fraud apps implemented by the country also demonstrate the rampant situation of fraud in the current society. Now that Shen has been arrested and the evidence is conclusive, we will apply for a search warrant to investigate and collect evidence in his residential area, and improve the evidence chain. Then the prosecution will initiate a lawsuit, which is expected to last for 2 months. As for the sentence, it also depends on the amount of money he defrauded. Generally speaking, for those who do not exceed 1 million, the maximum sentence is 10 years. Zhou Qin answered Qin Mu's question carefully. Shen only committed the crime alone. He estimated that the amount was not as terrifying. And Qin Mu finished listening. But she frowned, not too regretful. Unable to resist roast, he said. 2 months later, the maximum sentence will be 10 years. I knew. I should borrow more money for him to turn around. Several black lines couldn't help but appear on Zhou Qin's forehead. Shen encountered Qin Mu. I've been through 8 lifetimes of blood mold. Cough, we will collect evidence as soon as possible and prepare for prosecution. The law will never let any scumbag go. Zhou Qin chuckled a few times and spoke up. Subsequently, both sides briefly exchanged the details of the case, and Zhou Qin and others made a record before leaving the nursing home. Start preparing for the subsequent prosecution process. The next day, Qin Mu, who is taking care of the elderly in the nursing home, received a text message from Zhou Qin. The text message told him that the evidence chain was ready. At the latest, Shen will receive a judgment, accept a public trial, and face legal sanctions. Sending someone in is really enjoyable. After learning this news, Qin Mu felt very happy. These scammers who harm others and benefit themselves, one by one, should all be sent in. The only regret is he needs to prepare for everything this time, otherwise he will have to take out a loan of 1 million. Send Shen to eat more years of imprisonment. Anyway, as long as you react quickly, even if you catch someone, you can't lose the money. I didn't consider it carefully this time, I was hasty. Next time, I will strive for 15 years. Qin Mu hummed a tune while scrolling through his phone. Not long ago, I saw a video posted on the official account of a certain police station in Yangcheng, which suddenly showed a trend of explosive popularity. The number of views, likes, and comments is all skyrocketing. He was also featured in this video. After clicking in, the video depicts the interior of the police station, with Zhou Qin and Wang Qian holding onto Shen Fei from left to right, facing the camera. Hello everyone, today we have cracked a telecommunications fraud case. However, strictly speaking, this case is very bizarre and convoluted. The arrest of the suspect once again confirms that the world's justice is vast, and there is no room for error. The process of the incident also needs to start with the suspect making a phone call to an elderly person in a certain nursing home, pretending to be a member of the special task force and attempting to deceive. In the video, Zhou Qin spoke eloquently, without adding any embellishments or embellishments. I explained the process of the incident in detail. The suspect is very good at grasping people's psychology, and in just a few words, he broke through the psychological defense line of this old man surnamed Zhang. When he was about to raise money and transfer it to a designated bank card, the people around him discovered that he was a scammer. The only difference from others' approach is that he didn't hang up the phone, but instead scared the scammer. This is the call audio at that time. The video has arrived and an audio clip has been inserted. In the audio, I didn't expect to be discovered by you all. I'll show my cards, stop pretending. I'm not the trash you caught. Even if you kill someone, you can't catch me. Even if you catch me, I won't constitute a crime. Clean up the bloodstains, put them in buckets, fill them with cement, and sink them into the sea. Zhang Qingyuan's aged voice was cold and heartless. It sounds creepy. The image of an extra-legal maniac leaps into my mind. And at the end of the video, Zhou Qin stood up again and said, after the suspect was threatened, his psychological defense completely collapsed and he developed delusions of persecution. At 4 a.m. the next day, he arrived at the police station to report the case and was eventually successfully arrested. Here, we kindly remind everyone to be cautious of unfamiliar calls, not to trust any form of transfer or other information, to enhance prevention awareness and prevent being deceived. So far, the video ends. And Qin Mu discovered during the time he was watching the video, the views and likes doubled. Number of simultaneous viewers and it has reached as many as 78,000 people. End of this chapter.